there's nothing like cracking that cellophane and pulling that record out. It just smells great.
Welcome to BODS Mayhem Hour.
Non-stop hardcore energy.
I love the show, guys. You're awesome.
Unlike any other.
With your host, John the Bod, a.k.a. the Bod Father.
Man, this stuff rocks.
This is Jason Catlett with Parallax. I'm the guitarist, and you're listening to BODS Mayhem Hour.
The views and opinions of the guests do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of BODS Mayhem Radio Network, its staff, affiliates, or sponsors. Parental discretion is advised. Welcome to BODS Mayhem Radio Network.
Hey everybody, welcome to BODS Mayhem Hour. I am your host, John the Bod, a.k.a. the Bod Father, and as always, I'm bringing you guys and gals awesome interviews. And today it's an honor and a very huge privilege to welcome Jason Catlett, guitarist of Parallax. Hailing from the Air Capital, Wichita, Kansas, Parallax have spent the last 5 years crafting and defining their original chaotic sound deep within the Midwest metal scene. And let me tell you folks, these guys are really good with their sound. I like what they bring to the table. Parallax has released their newest album entitled Awaken via Fine Swine Records that came out back in February of this year. You want to check out their first single that came out called Hands, and also their new one that's called Descent. So like I said, guys, check this band out, give them a fair shot, because these guys can freaking bring it. So Jason, welcome to the show, man, and how you doing?
I'm good, man. Thanks for having me.
Not a problem. How excited are you to hopefully get out on the road, do some shows, do some local events, man, to get this album out even more?
Man, we're super stoked to kind of get out there a little bit more. We've already started a little bit. When our CD came out back in February, we did have a CD release show here in Wichita, and it was, it was amazing. It was awesome to be on stage for the first time in over a year. Since then, we've actually made a trip down to Austin, Texas, and played at a really cool venue called Come and Take It Live with our friends from Koningsor, and that was another amazing show. So we've got a couple shows that we've already played this year, which is, knocking the dust off, getting back into it. But we're definitely looking forward to getting a bunch more shows under our belt this year.
That was going to be my next question, actually, Jason. Was there a little rust when you guys got back out to do these shows or practicing? Was there just a little bit of rust you had to knock off to get back into full force again?
Really, no. So basically, when the whole COVID thing hit everybody, we just decided that we were going to write an album. Originally, we weren't even going to put out an album. We were just going to release a couple singles that we had wrote. But we spent that whole year here in the recording studio and just put out an album and rehearsed the whole time. So we're pretty well rehearsed. It is a bit different getting on a stage, and having a bit more room to run around. And, maybe I probably ate a little bit too unhealthy through that whole time. So, I probably was pretty winded after our first show, but I mean, it felt great, man. It was almost like we hadn't, ever stopped, but I feel like we were actually a little bit tighter when we hit the stage, to be quite honest, just because we did, I own a recording studio here in Wichita. So we're always rehearsing and always recording, even through quarantine. I mean, we never stopped, man. We just couldn't go out and play in front of everybody. So,
how's it feel to be signed to a record label with Fine Swine Records? Is this something that you guys have put out, or what's going on with this?
So with the Fine Swine Records, that is a deal that's between my business. My recording studio is called Magnitude Creative, and we teamed up with a production company here in town called Fine Swine Productions. And we just kind of came together to help bands out here in the area. A lot of bands' issues are like they don't have enough money to record, or maybe they got the recording but they don't have the money to get the distro put out there for it and get CDs pressed or T-shirts and stuff like that. So we kind of put the label together to help other bands out just in our area. It's not like a huge national thing or anything like that. We did it more for our scene, just to help people out. Currently though, we are the only artist that the label is working for. We did have several other artists, but their contracts kind of ran up after, we did some release shows and got them some product out there. And hopefully in the next year or so, we kind of push a little bit harder on that label thing and see how much further we can take it. But for the most part, it's a nice thing to help represent the band. If it comes down to it and we need some help getting some product put out there that we can't necessarily do ourselves, we've got the label to back us and help us, with my partner for Fine Swine Productions. So
the cool part is you're not thinking about yourself. You're thinking about how can we help these other bands too who need help with this. So that's so cool, man.
Yeah.
Because some wouldn't even done that. So kudos to you guys on this.
Yeah. That's all I did. There's so much good music out here right now. And like, there's, the one thing that limits any band is, the potential to put out good product. And, with me owning a recording studio, I can run these guys through here, at a discounted rate and stuff like that. And it helps the scene. I feel like, it's for everybody to have good product out there and to get that out there. It helps the scene overall. So that's kind of what we're trying to do,
Were these songs previously been written, or are these brand new songs, man, on this Awaken album?
The only song that was a rewrote song was the song Descent. We had originally wrote that close to 2 years ago, and it was called, it used to be called Parallax, and this was when we had a different singer, and we had a second guitarist in the band at the time that were brothers. They both recently left. Well, not recently. They left the band before coronavirus hit. But when we were writing the album, everything else on it were songs that we were writing to release as singles or for an album or an EP or whatever. We had that song left over that we had actually only released on 7-inch vinyl. Like, you couldn't get it anywhere else. And we just figured, well, we only sold this many vinyls. We didn't really put it out there. It was a great song. Musically, it was just, man, it's just one of those meathead, kind of like bang your head type songs. And it was just super catchy. So we decided to kind of rework it a little bit, rewrite it. And then we got our new vocalist in, and he just brought new life to it. And we decided to keep it around. Everything else was all fresh and new just for this album. We basically started writing it probably August of 2019 is when we started writing everything for this. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of been in the works for a while, and then we took our time with it because we couldn't go play shows or anything like that. So we made it the best that we could.
But as a band, were you guys a little nervous releasing this album right now, since you can't tour and do a whole lot with it? I mean, you could do some live stream shows, but were you a little nervous at all, maybe?
Not too much. I mean, yeah, no, we really weren't, man. We were just thinking, like, usually we just release EPs. So the fact that we were going to, like, do a whole album was kind of blowing our minds in the first place. But I don't think that we were ever nervous about it. Just because they were like, we just kind of wanted to do it for ourselves, like we all have our day gigs, that's how we make our money. So we weren't like thinking, oh man, we need to like sell so many records. And, we were just thinking, let's put out an album. We felt like it was more of a perfect time to do it because, one, everybody was at home listening to music that whole time. So like we were getting ready to put music in everybody's ears while they're just sitting at home, doing nothing. So to us, it seemed kind of like the perfect time to do it.
What's impressed or excited you the most, Jason, about making this new album, if anything, man? What sticks out the most about it for you?
Really just the talent that everybody brought to it, the dedication. Writing this album was kind of a sense of, we all had this sense of newness because we had just brought in a new singer. We had been dealing with some stuff with, older members. One of our previous members, he had been living in another state, which made it kind of difficult for us to write and vibe with him. Our previous singer, he just kind of had, he had things going on to where he couldn't be here as much as we wanted him to. So like, man, once we got our new singer in here, it brought this whole new life to this project. And overall, the writing process, once our singer got into the band, was it changed us musically and as a band. The best part about this album is that we've, after many years of kind of feeling like we were just beating the dead horse, we felt new again, and we were excited about playing music again, which is super important. Losing touch with why you're doing music is a terrible thing. You know what I mean? Like, and to be reminded that like we're doing this for fun and putting the fun back into the music. That's the best thing that we got out of this whole process, was the fact that we were having fun again, and like everybody in the band vibed together really well.
So what was he, that missing part and that spark that gave you that kick in the ass to, like you said, make it fun again?
Yeah, I feel like he did. I mean, because we were in a situation where we were working on music and we hadn't heard anything set in stone vocally when the old vocalist was around. And when we brought Nick into the band, he had lyrics for every song that we had, or that was, every song that was in production or currently in pre-production or whatever. So like, he just came in prepared, and we weren't used to that. We were always used to like, we write a song and maybe 4 or 5 months later we would hear some final vocals or something like that. But then here we were, like, had songs in pre-production, songs that we had just started, and we've already got lyrics. He had a whole story for the album wrote when he came to our band. So that was amazing. I mean, it was kind of unheard for us at that point. We're like, wait, what? You already have the songs wrote? This is amazing.
And here's the cool part is, if anybody doesn't know, this is your guys' concept album, correct?
Yep.
What led you guys to do a concept instead of just your status quo regular album?
Well, that's kind of all from Nick. He likes to tell stories. He's kind of he's really into superhero stuff and sci-fi nerd stuff, kind of like the rest of us. And he had this story about a man that was struggling with, good and evil on a daily basis. And throughout the story, it turns out that he's possessed by this like alien parasite that's trying to sway him to become this evil being that's going to bring about the destruction of the earth. And that's what he battles through the entire story is, his inner demons, basically. And then by the time you get to the last song, Esoteric, he's just burning it all down. I mean, there's no happy ending. He just finally gives in and realizes that this is what he wants. He wants to be this evil being and just burn it all down. And so the album ends with him destroying the earth. There's talks that, the next album will be a continuance of this character's journey, or it may be from a different perspective. We're not quite sure yet. We'll have to stay tuned and see how that all works out. But musically, the album is tied together by a motif, like a certain melody that is played throughout the whole album. Like you'll hear this one melody in one song, and then a couple songs later you'll hear the same melody, and it kind of comes. It helps tell the story, kind of tie it together like a movie. A movie score would have, your lead character would come in, and you would hear this certain music every time this character comes in. That's kind of how we used it musically. So we were already writing like that when he came in with the concept story. So it just worked out really well. Like it was almost too perfect.
Any tracks standing out more to you than any right now on this concept album? I know it's changed every time you guys listen to it or talk about it. And I know this is your guys' babies, but are there any that stick out for you possibly, man?
So when the album was done, for me personally, the banger on the album, and it still is the track Esoteric, which is the last song. And that is like, that is the first song that we wrote when Nick came into the band. And it was the most organic song of the entire album. It didn't take us very long to write it or put it together. It was almost like as soon as we put it together, all the riffs were there, the arrangement was there, and then, you know, a couple weeks later we're actually tracking it. Whereas some of these other songs, like, say, Sleep, we crafted that thing for like 6 or 7 months before we got it to the way that we wanted it. So I feel like the Esoteric song is the best representation of what Parallax is right now and where we're moving forward to, like what we're becoming. I also kind of like the surprise song on the album that turned out way better than I envisioned was the track Symbiotic, which is just a really off-the-cuff, strange song in comparison to the rest of the album, because it's not really heavy or anything like that, and it sounds like there's a bunch of keyboards and stuff like that in it, but there's not. It's all like just weird guitar effects and stuff like that. That one recently has kind of become one of my favorite ones to listen to, and we have a really cool like live version worked up that we do in our set that's, you know, slightly different than the album version, only because that song was actually a song that during quarantine, you know, we took 2 weeks off, I think, during quarantine, and I had taken, you know, some of my recording gear home and my guitars and stuff like that, and I just came up with the concept of that song sitting in my desk, you know, at my house with headphones on, and I think that 90% of the tracks on that song we actually kept from what I recorded at my desk, and then we just added, you know, drums to it later and some bass guitar, and the vocals came in. But it'd be a toss-up between those two tunes, Esoteric or Symbiotic.
Was there a track that you guys were working on that totally ended up sounding different than intended to, or even maybe took a huge turn possibly? Was it Esoteric maybe?
No, that song, I mean, it that one came out really how we envisioned it. I mean, it's kind of just raw and relentless and drive, you know, it's kind of pounds the pavement the whole time. I think Hands, I think when we were writing the song Hands, which was our first single off the album, I feel like maybe I wasn't quite I was kind of unsure about, you know, how it was going to come out. Like, I wasn't sure if, like, because it's a bit different than the rest of the songs. I feel like it's, you know, they're all heavy, but I feel like that one just has this different feel to it. I wasn't quite sure if it was going to work with the rest of the album, but then once we tracked it and, you know, everything was nice and clean and just like slamming it, that's probably the one that surprised me the most as far as like what happened. Plus, like, when we recorded it, it didn't have that cool tagline at the beginning where it was just like guitar and vocal. Mm-hmm. Like the way that it is now, you know, it starts with that guitar that's just like, you know, driving, and then the vocal comes in and you just like get pumped up and you want to, you know, stomp around the room and have a mosh pit in your house, you know. That was something that came after most of the song was recorded, and we were just like, hey, let's try this. And it was originally just going to be a guitar intro, and when we did it, our singer just jumped in there and just started screaming those lines, those first lines of the song. We were just like, you know, we all had the hair standing up on our arms. We're like, yeah, that's it. And then I think that's what really turned that song around for us, where we were just like, yeah, man, this tune is pretty slamming, and I can dig this, you know?
Mastering duties were handled by legendary mastering engineer Alan Doches, and I hope I said his last name correctly, at West Side Music in Westchester County, New York. He's known for his work with some of your favorite bands like Dillinger Escape Plan, Every Time I Die, Converge, and Mastodon, of course. So how was working with him on this?
It was amazing, actually. It was the first time that we had ever farmed anything out for mastering like that. Like, we had used local engineers for that stuff, and the guys that we used before were excellent. We used to go through this guy named Dustin Ritter from Bullet Ride Productions, you know, here in the area. He's always done a great job. For this album, though, we wanted to kick it up a notch. We were just thinking, you know, okay, you know, because the album overall, the quality of it is just, it's way huger than anything else that we've done. So we were like, okay, so let's look up and see who did Dillinger Escape Plan. And then it was like, oh, okay, it was this Alan guy, and it's like he had done every album since their first album. And I was like, okay, well, let's look up, Every Time I Die. And it was like, oh, well, it was Alan Douches again, and every artist that we kept looking up kept leading us back to Alan. And so I looked him up online, and I was watching this YouTube video about how he got in the industry. And I think that his story of how he got into the industry is what really sold me. Not just the fact that he had literally mastered, almost every one of my favorite albums over the past 15 years, but like his story was just, it was too cool. He was a phone guy, he was a gopher guy where he'd have to go and get coffee for people, and stuff like that, and answer the phones and stuff like that. And at some point, I'm sure that my story's a little bit off without watching the YouTube video again, but one of John Lennon's producers, one of the producers that had worked with John Lennon when John Lennon was alive, came into the studio that he was working at and wanted to take his tour of the studio. And Alan was like, well, yeah, nobody's here, come back in an hour or so, and then, somebody will be here and can show you around. And this guy insisted that Alan go have coffee with him or something like that. And, so he went and met with, John Lennon's producer, and, a couple months had went by after that conversation, and he had booked in a pretty big, I can't remember what it was, a pretty big act. And that engineer had requested Alan be his assistant on the project. And that's how Alan got his break into the industry. And, since then he's literally worked with everybody from Fleetwood Mac to Motorhead to, Dillinger Escape Plan, Mastodon. So really it was just like his resume that did it for us. And then me as an engineer, being the guy who recorded and mixed it, man, he took what I did here in the studio and he just put the cherry on top, man. It made it sound absolutely amazing. And I think it was at that point that I realized that, oh man, I have to use this guy for everything that I produce out of the studio. He makes my stuff sound amazing,
Now, John Dornbus did the artwork for the album. How was the work with him, and did he get exactly what you guys were looking for on it?
Yeah, so art was kind of a strange thing. I've worked with John before. John used to play in a band that was actually one of the bands that we worked with for, with the Fine Swine Records label. And I had seen a piece of art that John had did, and it was just like this red, black, and white sketch. And it was like this little creepy looking little alien parasite looking guy. And it was just super cool. And I was like, I kind of want you to do something, for the band. I hadn't really talked to the band about it yet. And I just told him the concept of what we were doing with the album. And he started doing some sketches. And I was like, yeah, I'd like the direction of that. And then we ended up with the version that we got, which actually on the CD cover, that's kind of like the Photoshop version of it, but the actual drawing of it, it's a little bit different, which we actually released as a cover for the 12-inch vinyl variant release. That's actually got a different cover than the actual CD. But John delivered, man. I mean, I thought it was great right off the bat. I also do graphic design here at the studio. Like, that's another service that I offer my customers. And I had some other concepts. We had talked about doing like some, dark buildings or, old Gothic looking churches and stuff like that for a cover. So I had done up a couple concepts. And I think when it came down to picking art, we had about 5 concepts on the table, and John's was one of them. And luckily we went with John because that was the one that I favored mostly, and plus I had paid John to do the art. But yeah, in the end, we went with John's concept just because it was unique. It was different looking than just like me throwing some graphics together on a computer because he had, hand drawn all of that stuff. So we've actually got several. He's done a couple of our T-shirts now, and we've got him working on another project right now as we speak for the next single. So John is amazing.
moving forward with the band, with the new vocalist and everything, is this the sound that you're wanting Parallax to have? Going outside that box, going down new endeavors and things with the band. Is this the movement forward that you want to see for this band?
Yeah. For now, I mean, like, you know, we've always just been into real heavy, aggressive music. I feel like that it's tamed down a little bit compared to, like, say, our first EP, which I feel like we were kind of falling into more of a deathcore type genre or something like that. But now it seems like we finally found our groove with, like, more of like a groove metal, almost like a new metal sound to a certain degree, without all the rapping.
Yeah.
I think right now this is kind of the direction we're going. We may have a little bit more of the singy stuff, kind of like what you hear in Sleep or Blood Moon. You know, there's kind of those big choruses where our singer sings a little bit, that's to us, that's pretty new, because our previous vocalist didn't really do any kind of singing like that at all. So to be able to have that option to not just scream and do death metal growls the whole time was very intriguing to all of us, because, you know, we're all over the place musically as far as, like, what we listen to. So this is definitely the direction we're going for the time. It could change in a year. You never know. We just kind of play what we like to play. So it could be a different flavor next year, you know?
All right, Jason, what do you hope everyone takes away, or a message you hope they hear while listening to any of Parallax music in general? What do you hope they get from it, man?
I hope they get pumped up, man. I hope they get pumped up and ready to get in the pit and, you know, have some fun with it. You know, life is short. Don't take everything so seriously. Let's just have a good time and mosh and get pumped.
I got to ask this question because I know you had a lot of music while you were growing up, but did you have that one album or one go-to song that you had to have each week or every other week, or that you just kept going back to that affected you as far as giving you inspiration or just letting you escape for a while? If so, what was it possibly? Or maybe today do you have that?
Man, so I'm kind of an old school guy. I'm a bit older, so, like, for me growing up, it was probably Saturday Night High and Dry by Def Leppard was probably one of my favorite tunes that has just stuck with me ever since. I mean, still to this day, you know, I listen to all that old school stuff quite a bit, like the older Def Leppard stuff. I don't know why, man. It was kind of a bit more rockin', and it wasn't quite as produced, and it's always just kind of hung with me since I was a little kid. I mean, because I was a little out, but I can still pop that song on, and I could put that thing on repeat and listen to it over and over still to this day, even though it's like a 40-year-old song or something like that.
Yeah, but God, that's what makes it so good. It was those songs back in the day were gritty, and you could listen to it on a cassette. For me, was like awesome because you could tell. I don't know. I guess the warmth that everybody talks about when you listen to those cassette tapes like that, man. It just feels like you're there in the studio with them when they was making the album, pretty much, in my opinion.
Yeah. I mean, some of those old school recordings, you can hear people talking in the control room if you're really listening with your headphones on. You know, like there was no Pro Tools involved with that stuff. They were literally like editing tape, and if, you know, somebody coughed during a really good take, that's an expensive take. It's probably going to stay in the recording.
Yeah, or when they're splicing tape.
It's the beauty of music, man.
Yeah, when they're splicing tape, you don't know, a little bit of something of the previous song could be left in there, and you're like, what's this? Like you said, it's left in the song and in the tape.
Yeah, man. Yeah, that's the great thing about it, man. I love all that old stuff, man. I've always been real big into making sure that I expand my musical horizon, even as I get older. You know, I'm always trying to stay up with current bands and stuff like that, but I've still got, you know, my old school bands that I always go back to no matter what.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Folks, you want to get out and pick up Parallax new album, Awaken. It's out right now. You will not be disappointed with this, so give this band a chance. Jason, how could folks stay in touch with you guys? Buy this album, tour dates, all the merchandise, say hello to you all. How can they do that?
The best place is to go to parallaxmetal.com. We've got everything up there. You can buy music directly from us. You can buy any kind of merch that we have. We've got CDs, shirts, vinyls, herb grinders. I mean, we've got everything. So basically parallaxmetal.com is your one-stop shop for everything. And then from there, you can find us on Spotify, iTunes, just pretty much anywhere that you can stream music, we're there.
And before I let you go, good sir, would you care to do a promo for the show?
Yeah, that's cool. This is Jason Catlett with Parallax. I'm the guitarist, and you're listening to BODS Mayhem Hour.
Everybody stick around. We got some great stuff coming up, and you only hear these interviews right here on BODS Mayhem Hour and BODS Mayhem Hour Podcast. Please get out and check out our Facebook page. It has our YouTube link, and you definitely want to subscribe to the YouTube link because we got a lot of stuff coming up, interviews and things to give away, so you definitely want to stay in touch and subscribe to the BODS Mayhem Hour YouTube page, and plus our podcast link is on there as well. Please get out and support Parallax. Pick up their new album, Awaken, and you will not be disappointed, folks. Trust me. You will not be disappointed. So, Jason, thank you for the interview, man, and I wish you nothing but the best of luck.
All right. Thank you. Thanks for having me, man. I appreciate it.
You're listening to BODS Mayhem Hour.
Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.